If you've ever wanted a reality check on how trademarks actually work, come to INTA, the International Trademark Association annual meeting. This year it's being held in London, which is super exciting, and that's where I'm recording from, where thousands of trademark lawyers, trademark attorneys, brand owners and advisors have gathered from all over the world. And when you sit in these rooms with all of the people from all over the world, one thing becomes very clear very quickly. Businesses don't lose their brands because they failed locally. They lose them when they expand internationally. Because the moment you step outside your home country, the rules change, and most business owners aren't prepared for that. Welcome back to Elise Explains IP, the podcast where we make intellectual property practical, strategic, and actually useful for your business. Today's episode is about a problem that I increasingly see, and it becomes increasingly common. It's a business who builds a strong, successful brand. They decide to expand internationally, and suddenly that brand becomes a liability instead of an asset. Here's the starting point. And we've talked about this before. Trademarks are territorial. There is no such thing as a global trademark registration. That means your registration in one country gives you rights in that country and nowhere else. So if you've registered your brand in Australia or the UK or the US, that protection does not automatically follow you into another market. From a business perspective, your brand feels global, and increasingly with e-commerce and the easy use of retail services like Shopify, it can be, but legally it isn't. Most founders assume one of these three things. Number one, we own a name, so we registered it. 2, we've been using it for years, so that should count. Or 3, we will deal with trademarks later, once we've expanded. All three of these positions are risky, and at INTA, you hear countless versions of the same story playing out because of these assumptions. Let's say you've built a great brand in your home market. You go to launch in the UK or in Europe and discover somebody else already owns that name there. Not because they copied you, but because they got there first, in that jurisdiction. In many countries, particularly in first-to-file systems, priority goes to whoever filed first, not whoever used it first. So, now you have a problem. You may not be able to use your own brand in the market. You may be unintentionally trading in a market where you're infringing someone else's rights. You may need to rebrand locally, or you may have to buy the rights, often at a premium. And none of these outcomes are ideal. Another common situation, you start trading overseas through online sales or distributors or even a local entity, and then you receive a letter, a cease and desist, because someone with earlier rights in that country has noticed you. You might even get a shutdown and takedown notice through your Etsy store. At that point, your options are limited and expensive. Rebrand quickly and publicly, fight the claim with uncertain outcomes, or negotiate a settlement or a license agreement. And importantly, now you're making decisions under pressure, not strategy. This next situation I'm going to discuss is a more subtle issue, but it comes up often in international discussions. A brand that is perfectly registrable in one country may not be registrable in another. For example, it might be descriptive in another language. It may conflict with an earlier mark that you didn't pick up, or it may fall into a restricted category in that jurisdiction. It could be translated into something rude or against public policy. So even if no one else owns it, you might not be able to protect it, which means you're entering a market with a brand you can't properly defend. Even in businesses that do think about international protection often run into issues. For example, filing too narrowly or in the wrong goods and services, filing too late, filing in the wrong entity, or relying on one system without understanding its limits. The Madrid Protocol for International Registrations is a great tool, but it's not a set-and-forget global solution. It relies on dependency on your original application and can be quite complicated. And this is something that's discussed quite frequently at INTA, the difference between having filings and having a strategy. When a brand breaks internationally, it's not just a legal issue. It becomes a business issue because your brand touches marketing, customer recognition, contracts and licensing, your online presence, and investor perception. So when something goes wrong, the impact is broad and often disruptive. So, what does a more strategic approach look like? Here are a few practical steps. Number 1, think about expansion earlier. You don't need to file everywhere from day one, but you do need to think about where you might go and whether your brand will hold up there. Number 2, do a clearance search before you enter a market. Before launching in a new country, check the availability, assess your risk, and understand what you're walking into. This is far easier and cheaper than fixing a problem later. Number 3 is to prioritise your key markets. Focus on where you're trading, where you plan to expand, and importantly, where your manufacturing or distribution occurs. Sometimes making a thing in a country is considered use in trade and commerce in that jurisdiction, and you can get caught out. Protection should follow your commercial reality. 4, get the ownership right. Make sure the correct entity owns the trademark, particularly if you're operating across multiple jurisdictions. Think about the head company and maybe licensing it to a local subsidiary. Ownership mistakes become much harder to fix once you scale. 5, treat trademarks as a strategic asset. As I have said before, trademarks aren't just a legal checkbox. They are a core business asset, particularly when you start operating internationally. Being here in London at the International Trademark Association Conference, surrounded by global conversations about brand protection, reinforces something that I see in practice all the time. Most trademark problems aren't caused by bad intent. They're caused by good businesses growing, but without the right structure around their IP. So, if you're thinking about expanding, or even if it's just on the horizon, this is the moment to step back and ask, will our brand actually work where we want to go? Because fixing it early is strategic, and fixing it later is expensive. If you're planning to expand internationally and want to make sure your brand is structured and protected properly, you can book a strategy call with me at any time via the link in my show notes. And I'll see you next time, at home again in Melbourne. Thanks for spending time with me on Elise Explains IP. If you picked up something useful, hit follow, subscribe, leave us a review, or send it to a founder friend who could use this information. And remember, this is general information, not legal advice. If you do want help with your IP, you can book a strategy call with me at any time via my website. The link's in the description. So until next time, own your own ideas.